Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi. What's up? Where are you at right now?
Hi. Oh, it is Shannon and I, Andre, coming to you live from Shannon's bedroom.
Yeah, it's not actually live though. That's a lie.
Yeah, definitely
whenever
not.
It's posted. It's
Could never be live.
No. But I can touch him. It's COVID friendly. I've been vaccinated fully.
Same here.
Yeah. So this is what's happening.
We are together for the first time recording. Like, we have brought you back from the dead just to record right now.
I don't think I ever died, but I do understand where you're coming from.
I think the wish was there. No.
We're not going to talk about that.
But yes, we are together in the same room. I am shook, and I'm so happy to be here.
I'm happy that you're here as well, especially that I got to see you after many years.
I know, literally.
He looks great, by the way. Like,
Obviously.
He just turned, like, 41.
Yeah, I know.
Last week.
Yeah.
His skin is flawless. It's incredible.
It's the Botox. Yeah, but I'm very much excited to be here together with Shannon, recording together for the first time after, like, we did a whole podcast not having seen each other. Can you believe that?
That's pretty crazy.
That's whack.
Yeah, we never saw each other. We never did any type of video.
I know. I mean, we did. We have full video episodes, but we're never going to release them. That's only for our Patreons on patreon.com/talkscary.
Also, it is weird because, like, I feel like we're talking to each other while simultaneously talking to a computer screen.
Yes.
So, like, it's really weird. It's like we have this dead emotional detachment in our eyes.
Yes.
But a lot of excitement in the heart.
Very much excited, although we are definitely engaging in pageantry in person, which is the oddest thing I've ever done, because you both want to be with your friend and enjoy your time, but also perform for an audience. And I understand what a psychopath feels like.
The psychological trauma.
Yeah, it's real.
It's very intense. Andre drove really far away. It's pretty tired. I'm just tired because I'm old.
Yeah.
As you all know, I'm turning 65.
I know,
soon.
but you look good too for your age.
Thank you. Yeah, I do get fit while you sit. If anyone remembers that.
Dude, I literally was at a senior center once, and that was an actual class that was offered. So the fact that you know that.
Right. Well, I do bingo every Sunday. COVID friendly, of course. It's all right. Yeah. So that's the tea. What's happening? What's on your heart today, Andre?
I'll tell you what's on my heart today. Britney Spears is on my heart today and every day. Yes. I need to. I don't know if you know anything updates on this, but I need to update you. So, the biggest thing recently is that her dad, Jamie, became very sick recently, and he actually had to, he filed for the court to have himself removed from the conservatorship as the conservator of Britney's person, but not her estate, which means he still handles the money. Apparently not too sick to still handle her money.
Yeah.
But yes, her person, which means that now someone else, I'm not sure who it is, but it's obviously still approved by Jamie, but I wonder if Britney likes this person better. But someone else is now in charge of, like, her. You can drive at this time but not at this time, or you can post this on social media, or like basically everything else about her life, which is whack.
That is so weird.
Super whack. And another big thing is that, like, the big conspiracy theory around the Free Britney movement right now is that her social media posts are actually being made by another person and not even made by her, right? So, like, we already knew that basically anything she posts has to be pre-approved by the conservatorship, but we didn't think that it was literally just like a social media manager posting whatever they wanted for Britney, and actually Britney can post for herself. And this isn't confirmed, but people think that that is the case, actually, and I have to agree. I was talking about this with someone a couple days ago. It's the fact that when I don't know if you know about the Hulu documentary that came out.
I watched that, yes.
Right. So the New York Times Presents series did a documentary, one of their episodes, on the Free Britney movement, and it was very informative. I liked it. I thought it was really well made. And Britney Spears posted on Instagram, I just heard about the Hulu documentary coming out, or I heard about it 2 weeks ago, and I haven't seen it, but I have been crying ever since it came out, because it talks about my life, and all I want to do is be happy and be in peace. And this is when the whole, like, Britney is not in charge of her Instagram theory blew up, because there's no fucking way she wrote that.
Yeah.
First off, why? Like, the documentary was completely in favor of her and the movement, and And she has actually expressed through a statement that her attorney made not long ago. Samuel Ingham III is her attorney. She expressed support for the Free Britney movement and thanked her fans. So why would she be like, this Hulu doc made me cry for 2 weeks? She didn't write that, and it's fucking spooky.
Yeah. Well, also, like, you can't say, I didn't see it yet, but it made me cry for 2 weeks because it portrayed me poorly.
But the reason they have to say that is because if Britney's ever asked about this, like, she and she hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
You know, the poster of that post can say, oh yeah, I'm Britney and I saw it, if Britney hasn't actually seen it.
Right.
Insane.
I just can't imagine being a fully grown-ass woman in charge of literally nothing in your life. And not even your finances. You're basically like a slave that like sings and dances. And that's it. That's your life.
A slave for you?
Oh, damn. You went there.
I don't think she can either. Like, I wonder if she just disassociates from her current state of life.
That can't be like healthy.
Yeah,
like at all.
Like I think that's partly why we see her like dancing like she's in the Hunger Games on her Instagram. Like she's dancing like that's the last time she's gonna dance in her life, and there's someone like with a gun, but like right outside of the frame.
Yeah.
She's like.
Oh my god.
And I think it's because she's just trying to keep her sanity and literally do anything to distract herself from the fact that her dad has her in a Rapunzel situation. Mm-hmm. Like, that is fucking insane.
It's crazy. We need to free Britney.
Dude, in 2021, we have fucking Rapunzel. Like, I can't believe this. But anyway, so those are the big updates. Britney might just be more imprisoned and less in charge of her life even than we previously thought.
Right.
So that's the tea. Free Britney.
Free Britney. 2021 needs to happen.
Anything you want to share that's on your heart, Shannon?
What is on my heart? Shoot, nothing really. I live a pretty boring life.
Your boyfriend is on your heart.
Oh, yes, he is. But I don't think the listeners want to hear about that.
The listeners hear all the tea, sometimes even too much tea, about Sunny's boyfriend, so you at least have to tell them that you have one and that he's nice.
He's so nice.
Yes.
He's very cute, very kind. He told me this morning that on his commute to work, he was going to listen to Scary Talk, and I was like, oh,
really?
Don't do that. Yeah. I'm like, you don't need to hear me from 2 years ago. You get it right now. Like, what are you...
But had you told him about the podcast before?
Yeah, I had.
Yeah.
He didn't know about it for a long time.
But he hadn't listened to it.
Yeah, I didn't give him the title. I didn't want him to learn about me without talking to me in person.
Oh my God.
Like, why...
He's never seen this pillow in your house, never asked about it?
No, I hid it.
Oh my God, Shannon. Are you ashamed of the monster we've created?
I'm not ashamed.
I think it's a beautiful little monster.
I talk about a lot of personal stuff on here. It's like kind of like having a diary that's broadcast to thousands of people. But since I don't actually have to talk to them, it's like, whatever, that's fine.
To be fair, I didn't tell my mom or dad that I had this for like forever. And I think now that we're ending at 100, I think only recently I was like, oh yeah, I have a podcast. They were like, what's that? I was like, oh, like an internet radio show. And I make jokes and fart jokes and skinny jokes and talk about aliens. And they were like, oh, cool, great, you're a success.
Oh my God. I mean, kind of. Yeah, kind of iconic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many views or listens, I guess you would call it?
I mean, right, like, we're a small podcast, y'all. Hi everyone. But, I mean, how do I say this without sounding cocky? A lot of podcasts, like, a lot of small podcasts would like to have the listeners that we have. And it's not only about the plays, which right now we're getting 1,500 to 2,000 plays per episode, but it's also it's more to me about the engagement. Because, like, you can have a lot of, like, I think Twitch streamers call them, I forget the word, creepers? No, that's not right. But just like you could have a lot of people who listen and don't interact at all.
Yeah.
But we get a fair amount of people who like will actually comment on our stuff, send us messages, topic ideas, or even just like personal messages / emails. I'll tell you about this not off camera, off mic. I'll tell you about this later, but we got a very interesting email recently. But to me, that's really the biggest thing. I don't know that every podcast gets a lot of engagement, and to me, that's what's most important. Yeah. So I'd say, in that sense, we're a success. Like, we actually have people talk to us because they think, like, they feel like they can talk to us. And they know us, Yeah. That's cool.
Well, I've been listening to a podcast called Don't Keep Your Day Job with Kathy Heller. Just like self-improvement stuff. And I think something that she talks about a lot is like if you're trying to do a entrepreneurial thing, online, social media, all that stuff. It's not about the number of followers you have. It's about the depth of your connection with them.
Yeah.
It's like, are you actually communicating with them on a personal level that they feel like they aren't just one in a crowd?
Yes.
Because that really makes the biggest difference. It's because we're not for everyone.
Right,
and like that's the reality. Like not every single person you walk up to is going to be like, you talk about the Mothman and sucking his dick. Like, yeah, sign me up. I am ready for like 100+ episodes of this. But there are people who have been listening to it since the beginning.
Right.
And just love Andre. I do still want you to know he's a cyborg. He's never going to die. So if you ever need him to continue making podcasts, just let him know.
Dude, enough people like push me and I'll keep doing it. I'll be like, okay, fine. But yes, I completely agree with what you said. Like, it's when it comes to anything where you have an audience, it's always quality over quantity. Because, I mean, like, this is funny, but like when it comes time, for example, we don't really do this, not really. Like, we have merch, but not really. If it ever comes time for like a person to shill something, you obviously want to have like an audience that's more connected to you, because then they'll like your product and whatever merch you're trying to attach to it. Our merch still exists, by the way, y'all, but like I couldn't care less. It is cool looking now. But yeah, like the reason now Sunny and I continue to do this is because like we actually have fun doing it, and that never went away. Like, we're ending at 100 for a number of reasons, one of them being like, you know what, ending this fucking thing on a high, because like I feel like we're still on a high, but that doesn't mean we no longer have fun with it. We still have fun with it, and that's why we're still here. We wouldn't otherwise, because like we don't get paid to do this. So that's the real tea. Yeah.
I think we made $18 one time.
Dude, that fucking bang.
And we split that. So I got $9 and he got $9. So you can't say it was all for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you're not lying. Yeah. Anyway.
So do you want to talk about what we're going to talk about today?
Dude. Today we are talking about a case that I actually brought to Shannon. You knew about it, but I brought it up because I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. It's the Menendez brothers case, Lyle and Erik Menendez, because I didn't actually know anything about it, and then I watched this Hulu documentary, and also this YouTuber that I love. Her name is Kendall Ray. She covered the case, and I was like, holy fuck, like this case is insane. The ins and outs of it are insane, and also the sentencing to me is really crazy, and I think that's probably where we're going to focus on it most. So that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, no, I also think it's worth saying, like that you didn't really know about it because they were convicted in 96.
Yeah.
And so it's not like it's a new thing.
Right, and I was born in 2003, so...
Right. You're just lying. I just told them you're 41.
But you believed it for a second right there. Yeah.
I did. I had to do the math really quickly.
Oh my god.
Anyway, and I mean, we're going to kind of talk about it a little bit, but it's TikTok that really brought it back.
Yes. So I was actually just telling you off air that I think, look, it's a domino effect, right? The reason Kendall Ray did a video, because YouTubers have to do stuff that's trendy, did a video on this case is because a lot of people recommended it to her, and those people probably saw it on TikTok, and it's because the case recently arose to prominence again through TikTok, because a bunch of TikTokers are making videos about it because they think Erik Menendez is hot, and or was hot when he was convicted. He was like, whatever, 19 or 20 at the time,
right?
And yeah, he was a good-looking man, but it's just funny to me that, like, listen, exposure is exposure, especially if you're trying, like, for justice, anything is good, but it is really kind of cringe to me that, like, a bunch of people were like, he's hot, let's bring him justice. Dude, what if I'm ugly and like I go to jail? I'm fucked.
You're fucked. Like, that's just the reality of criminal justice in America.
Oh my god, it's a reality of pretty privilege, really.
Oh yeah, I mean we could talk about that all day, but they have proven that confidence makes a very big deal, and so you could be the ugliest fucking person objectively.
I mean, I wouldn't know about that at all, but
no, not at all, not at all. The skin is glowing. The teeth are white.
That's all you need, really. But yes, pretty privilege is a real thing. But that's not the topic of the video. But anyway, this became popular because this guy was hot, and I guess I'm glad it became popular because it brought it to my attention, and now we're talking about it. And it is a case I am, dare I say, like somewhat passionate about, like actually, because dude, the way it was handled, insane to me. Granted, this was 1996 that this trial took place, but that isn't even that long ago. And so I'm just shook people were so as they were. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I already have things to say just based off of that statement alone, because it's just fucking crazy. So do you want me to start with the history?
Yeah, give some background.
All right, so we're gonna give some background. This is just baseline overview. So it's two brothers, Lyle and Erik Menendez. Lyle's the older brother. He was born in 1968 at the time of the crimes. He was 21. And he was 19 at the time of the crime. And they were young kids. That's just sad. I think it's sad when young people do that. But we're going to talk about why they did that, right? So, so basically, they were from a really wealthy family. Their father, Jose, he was born in Cuba and he moved to the U.S. At the age of 16. He made a lot of money. That's really the biggest takeaway from what I researched is this guy was rich. He found his wife, Kitty. They got married in college, and
he was a Hollywood person. He was like in the music industry and then film industry. Yeah, that's where he got his money.
Yeah, so he was a corporate executive in Beverly Hills, and he liked to show off his money. He treated his children like they were an asset, kind of. Yes. Like a representation of him. They're the hot young versions. And you need to be perfect. You need to be exactly what I want you to be.
Right. You need to have all the skill. Like, these kids were in so many extracurriculars and also, like, were being basically, like, worked to the bone all the time. And they didn't really have a lot of a childhood. Yeah.
Well, you need to be this perfect representation of, like, how wealthy and how successful we are. Like, that is your job as the kid. And Lyle got into Princeton University. This is apparently Jose paid Princeton $50,000.
I heard about this. Yeah, I believe that.
I mean, can you believe now we're in a time where you can actually get in trouble for that? He was suspended for a year after being accused of plagiarism. So the boys are back home, basically. They're at home. And then we come to the evening of 1989, August 20th, when they do kill their parents. So
yes,
there's no, like, we're not here to say they didn't. Like,
no, and we won't get into the reasoning until they get into the reasoning, which doesn't happen until the trial. Right. So as far as we know right now, these kids are fucking psychopaths.
Right. They're spoiled. They did it for trust fund money. They spent all the money afterwards.
I mean, that's where my mind would go at first.
That's where your mind's supposed to go, and I think that's the way the trial painted it to go, at least the one that eventually convicted them.
Well, at least the prosecution. Well, yeah, definitely.
And so that's what you're supposed to know, right? You got this, like, spoiled rich kids.
Yeah, and then they murder their parents one night with a fucking, shotgun?
12-gauge shotgun. Bruh. And I'll just explain how this happened. So the parents were sitting on the couch watching TV. Kids walk in with shotguns, shoot dad in the back of the head. He's dead immediately. You can't survive that. Kitty, who was apparently asleep, she awoke from the shots and got up. She was shot in the leg and she fell into her own blood. And then she was shot several more times with the shotgun in the arm, chest, and face. And she was not recognizable. Okay,
so pause. You cannot survive a shotgun to the head, but it is insane to me that some people do survive, like, small bullets to the head because of, like, the fucking Phineas Gage effect where, like, this guy fucking thing went through his head and he was fine because it hit a part of the brain that wasn't, like, fatal, but, like, his personality changed. It is crazy to me that, like, some people legit survive, like, bullet brain injuries because it just, like, goes straight through and, like, it doesn't hit something that kills you and so you survive.
Well,
That's fucking crazy.
It's also just crazy in the sense of like some people exist with half a brain, and I don't mean like Republicans because we all know about that. I mean like
right, literally.
If you have half your brain die, the other half will pick up the pieces of what that did. Like that's crazy. Like we are just organic little machines, and we just take it for granted. You know.
Kudos to the brain, dude.
Right.
Like fucking thank you.
She's a tiny little ball of meat, and she's doing her best, and that's beautiful.
Anyway.
So it's also worth noting both the parents were shot in the kneecaps because they were attempting to make it look like
a mafia job
killing. And you know what? Kudos to them for coming up with some type of idea.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, Lyle calls 911 and he tells the operator, "Someone killed my parents." Mm-hmm. Their alibi is that they were at the movie theater watching Batman, and then they went to attend the annual Taste of LA festival at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium.
Which is weirdly fitting, though, isn't it? That they were watching Batman, you know, the guy whose parents got killed.
Oh, and he's a vigilante.
I know.
So there's that. The police did not take gunshot residue tests from them to see if they had a firearm because there wasn't really, you know, any type of evidence or any reason to do that, so they just didn't. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so parents are dead.
Which, I mean, this is obviously sarcasm because, like, what the fuck? Like, the way they handled the crime scene was fucking negligent. And it was negligent, as far as from what I understand, because the police were like, oh, well, definitely mafia killing. Because, like, these two rich boys, they didn't even take, like fingerprints. Mm-hmm. So we're like, rich white boys, no way.
Right, like, they would never.
Yeah, the crime scene was completely mishandled because they were like, there's not a lot to see here. Like, what are we going to gather? Like, whatever. Mm-hmm. If it was mafia, like, they wouldn't leave fingerprints anyway. So, you know what? Let's move on. And then they did the investigation only, like, internally, like in an office with paperwork. They didn't take a lot from the scene of the crime, which is dumb as shit.
I mean, that's just like, can we talk about privilege for a minute? Because like that, like,
but also just bad police work, to be honest.
It's bad police work. It's stupid. It's entirely stupid, and they didn't even develop any suspicions really until, you know, they're spending all this money all willy-nilly.
Until the brothers started spending a lot of money after the funeral, and also acted weird at the funeral, and also after the fact that like the police weren't getting any leads with the information that they had, and like the mafia was like, because like the police can talk to like, you know, they have their ways. They're like, we didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of the gist. The way this comes about, and you have to realize I'm like talking about the very sensitized, edited version of this because that's how it was presented. Right. Like that is what everyone.
Yeah, totally. We're going chronologically here. We're finding out. You're finding out about this the way people found out about this at the time.
To kind of understand where they're coming from.
Right.
So Erik was seeing his psychologist, and he did tell his psychologist that he killed his parents, but he threatened his psychologist, and so therefore it was evidence they could use because when you violate that patient privilege.
Right. However, it is of course later argued that this is a complete lie, and the psychologist was never threatened, and he just lied about that and said that so that he could release this to the police because there was some kind of monetary gain for him in it. And also important to know that before, you said Erik or Lyle? Erik.
It was Erik.
Before Erik went to the psychologist, because like he was basically riddled with guilt at this point and couldn't keep up the act the way that Lyle could. I guess he was a little bit better. He had already tried to confess to a friend of his, like at lunch. Girl, imagine if just now when we went to sandwiches, I was like, yeah, I killed someone.
Oh my god.
Like, how do you, like, poor friend, how do you take that? But apparently he, like, the day later retracted that because like, you know, like obviously he got freaked out, and the friend, but the friend already was like, what the fuck? So was he telling the truth or not? But the friend didn't do anything about that. It was finally the psychologist.
Erik did confess to the psychologist, but Lyle threatened the psychologist.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how that happened. You know, the doctor, his name's Dr. Oziel. He was the main star witness or whatever. And so, yeah, that's what happened. So do you want to talk about, or just kind of like lead us into it? We can both talk about the motive.
the motive. Right. Yeah, for the trial. So, yes. So basically, at this point, so I'll add one more thing. The funeral happens, and then 6 months have gone by after the death. and no leads, and the police only get onto these kids because like because they were spending so much money, especially Lyle. He was like going on these shopping sprees, and like buying Rolexes and really expensive suits and whatnot, which is super odd. They started days after the funeral, which is super odd. If like your parents just died and you're grieving, but like we then later come to find out like that's how he grieved. Like it's just people grieve in different ways. And like if you have money, you know, why not use that to try to numb yourself, especially if you're trying to cover up the guilt of killing your parents.
Right.
But yeah, it's weird because like when they finally arrested them, like what was it? Lyle was actually visiting the U.S. from Israel because soon after the death, he went there for like months to practice his tennis because he was really good. And like during that visit, the police had already caught into the fact that maybe the brothers did it, and so they like got him at the airport because they knew if he flew back to Israel after his visit to extradite him, it was gonna be a fucking mess. And as far as Erik, he was like still in Beverly Hills, I think, and they just got him. But anyway, they arrest these kids and put him in jail, and the prep for the trial starts. So their defense, oh my god, I forget this lady's name, Leslie Abramson. She was the defense. She was really good. I have a lot of thoughts about that. I don't know if we'll be able to get into all of it, but I thought she did her best, and etc., etc. God bless her heart. The prosecution, they basically argued that the kids, well, we'll call them the men, the Lyle and Erik were trying to inherit their father's wealth, and they needed it now because they were just super greedy, and also because they saw a window of opportunity because their father's health was apparently declining, and which like makes no sense because why would you stage like a mafia killing instead of an accidental death or like a oh, he died in his sleep kind of thing. And basically they were like, yeah, they're trying to get his money, and this was a merciless killing from two spoiled rich brats who just wanted daddy's fortune, and also they hated their parents. So that is the prosecution, and then the trial starts, and oh my, the defense actually calls both defendants, Lyle and Erik, to testify. And actually I should point out that Lyle and Erik had separate trials, so they were happening at the same time, but different courtrooms, different people, different juries. And they were both called to testify, which isn't super common for defendants to testify on their own case, but they did, and I can totally see what they did because Lyle and Erik finally came out with a lot of information to their defense attorney once they were gonna be tried, because like at this point, girl, it's the truth or bust. And so they told her everything, and what they told her and what they testified about in court was that their father was actually a pedophile and an abuser, and had abused them for years, basically from like age 6 to like now. Erik being 19 and still living at home, and for Lyle, he was now in college, but like he was also abused until the age of like 18, and he was 21 now. And that their mom was an enabler of said abuse, and that she basically let it happen. And to me, that's I mean, like, this dad fucked up, but to me, that's almost the creepiest part, that like the mom knew and like let it happen because she was a drug abuser and also an alcoholic, and I guess she was trying to cope and also somehow keep her marriage together, and so she figured like, oh, I'll let him have his fun with our kids, which, dude,
well,
fucking
also,
fucked.
She has this rich lifestyle. She's used to it. That it all comes down to like how much
I don't want to
live
lose,
with, and she's a fucking bitch.
right? Because if you divorce, like you lose.
You lose all of that. You also get a really fucked up reputation.
I know, dude, but like, dude, your kids literally mean anything and everything.
They should.
Like,
they
what
absolutely
the
should.
fuck?
This bitch she was awful.
Of course. Witnesses, defending the parents' honor and working with the prosecution were like, no fucking way in hell. Like, Kitty was the mom's name, Kitty Menendez. She would have never done that. She would have never enabled anything. There is no way that she ever abused her kids or anything.
But you have to realize in every single sexual assault case, there is always going to be that person that they call who they're like, no, they would never do that, because there are those people. They just don't believe it. And it's like, you have to have your head so deeply buried in the sand to ignore someone's pain from a sexual assault because you don't want your image of them to be ruined.
And this is why I believe what you're saying, Shannon, because the person who was saying that the loudest was Kitty's brother. And like, of course, you're not going to be like, yeah, my sister was a fucking monster.
Right.
You're not going to want to say that even if it's true. And for Jose, actually, this was kind of funny. For Jose, they actually couldn't really find any witnesses that were willing to testify on his good, on his good character, because even his employees, which they're not family members, they don't know him as an abuser, they're just the employees. They were like, yeah, he was an asshole. He was an asshole boss.
Yeah.
And he would there was like one person that was like, yeah, I was like under him and I supervised one of his branches. I was under Jose, and one time he came into he would come into one of my branches, into the branch every month, and like someone would be fired by the end of the day by him.
That's crazy.
Like, that's so fucked. So he created a toxic work environment. He created a toxic living environment.
He needed to be in charge. He needed to be the most powerful.
Right.
He needed to make them feel weak.
Basically, yeah. He was fucked in the head. I don't really find justification for it. There's a lot of people that have said a number of things, like, oh, he himself suffered abuse in his childhood, and also like being an immigrant and having to leave home so young and alone and broke. And it's like, dude, Iggy Azalea was 15 in the middle of Miami, fucking, grinding it, like trying to make it happen. She didn't make him a monster, as far as we know. All I'm saying is, like, no justification.
No,
Fuck
there's
that.
no justification at all. There just isn't.
Dude, this motherfucker diddled his kids for 15 years, or what do you want?
Can you imagine?
12 years, like...
I don't think you understand. Like, think about, like, your entire childhood being in fear of the next time dad's gonna come into your room.
Literally.
And touch you.
Literally.
That's not what a parent is supposed to do.
Uh-huh.
Probably should have had trigger warning for this episode.
Yeah, trigger warning. Everything is terrible in this episode.
Everything is fucking terrible, because this is not okay. And it really affects, a lot of the brain functioning. If you're a young child being in an abuse situation, you aren't okay. And so, of course, you're gonna snap. Like, that's just reality. Like, if you live your life in fear, then everything is fearful. And, of course, you're gonna respond in ways like fear. It's fight, flee, or what is it?
Yeah, it's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which apparently is like the fourth weird response that I just learned.
Right.
But people that are like super people pleasers, just like, bow their head and be like, yeah, whatever you want. Like, just, that's another response.
And they didn't think they could flee. That's another thing.
Right,
Their dad was rich and powerful.
No flight.
There is no flight.
So here we get into how the defense actually paints their reasoning behind the murders, right? So we have the prosecution's motive, which is that they were spoiled and rich and wanted the money and were, they didn't have any heart, so they had no problem killing their parents. Then there is the defense's explanation, which is no, their dad was a pedophile, their mom an enabler of the abuse, and they were at this point 19 and 21. And okay, so Erik is 19, still living at home, or just turned 19, looking forward to going to college. His dad tells him, you have to go to a college that is nearby so you can still come on the weekends. And he's like, fuck. And so he fucking hates this. Erik comes to visit for a couple of weeks. Lyle comes to visit for a couple of weeks. He's in, like, I think, college in the East Coast or something. He comes to visit, and Erik confides in him everything that has happened to him, and also the fact that their dad now wants him to not leave far for college, which Erik was looking forward to moving the far away, and Lyle is like, motherfucker, like, this is so sad, but Lyle was like, I didn't know that our dad was abusing you too. He basically promised, me that he was gonna stop with me and not do that to you. Can you believe, like, having to make that deal with your dad? Like, holy fuck.
That is horrible.
And forget the fact that this is so dysfunctional and fucked up. Just in general, like, someone, not honoring a deal, man, fuck y'all bitches. Don't do that. That's dishonorable. And then, add to it the fact that this is a deal with Satan, and the fact that, like, you're talking about raping and your sibling, and, like, I mean, come on. Anyway, deal was broken, And Lyle confronted his father, and his father then confronted Erik and was like, what? You told Lyle? Apparently, like, the dad was, which I guess makes sense age-wise, like, less willing to, like, get all up in Lyle's face because he was, like, older now and, like, living on his own and, like, a whole man, then he had a much easier time getting all up in Erik's face and intimidating him. Right. Also because he still lived at home, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And so he really took it out on Erik and was like, what the fuck? You told him, blah, 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 blah. And Erik at that point, because his dad was like, you know what, I'll talk to you later. Erik at that point was, like, sure that his dad, when quote-unquote later came, was basically gonna murder him. Because Erik thought that his dad was thinking that if Erik told Lyle what, Erik is gonna tell people now, the press, who knows? And his dad was gonna freak out, and fleeing certainly wasn't an option because his dad had so many connections, being a rich corporate executive, that if this guy went to, like, hide on a Motel 6, like, his dad would find a way to find him. So fleeing wasn't an option. It's literally gonna be my life or his. Like, oh my god, my dad is gonna kill me tonight. I can't flee. It's either, like, dude, your lizard brain just, like, fucking goes overdrive.
Right.
In these kinds of situations. It's literally, like, flight or die now.
Well, think about the anxiety that you would be having in that situation, how difficult it is to think clearly on top of just being, like, an abused person.
Right. And also, yeah, like, your brain is going to be so clouded because, like, even if you weren't so abused and didn't feel like you were so much under your father's thumb, maybe you would actually feel like you could flee and be successful fleeing. You know what I mean? Which I think he could have, but again, he was so, like, no matter what, my dad is omnipresent. Like, that's probably how he thought.
Right. Well, because that's what he was made to believe. Dad's in control. Dad's in control of my money. I have to do this for Dad.
He has a radar in his head. He'll find me.
Yeah.
Like.
And also, people have snapped and tried to kill their family over less serious things. Like, how can you say that it was irrational to shoot them? Like, it's like, yeah, okay, shotguns are pretty grisly. But, like, it gets the job done. Like, I mean, it's not like they, like, decapitated them. Like,
They also literally had, like, I think an hour to plan this. I mean, okay, so here's the thing. Apparently they bought weapons, like, weeks in advance, which really helped the prosecution be like, this was premeditated murder. But, oh my god, fuck. There was, like, some reason behind this. Or, I don't know. Oh my god, I should know this, but I don't know. But the point is that Erik and Lyle both argued really strongly during their time as witnesses on the stand that, like, no, I think, what was it, like, these were for shooting range or self-defense of some other kind, or nothing to do with the murders that took place. And they were like, when we actually decided to, like, use these against our parents, correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon, if you find something, that plan itself actually was made in, like, an hour tops, because, like, we were literally sitting on the staircase of our house as our dad and mom went into a room to watch a movie after, dad had told Erik, I'll see you later or whatever. And we were like, and Erik told Lyle, this is what dad just told me. And Lyle actually also, like, I think helped influence this. And Erik said, it was like, oh my god, like, we're in danger. Because of course Lyle was also traumatized. So of course he was also thinking, like, fuck, even if I'm a man now and I live outside of that, like, I'm still afraid of my dad, obviously. And so he also thought they were both gonna be killed now.
Right.
And it's just like, yes, you can be like, oh, it's the guy's fault. It's both of the brothers' fault. They really got all up in their heads, and that's irrational. But it's like, dude, again, you haven't lived their lives. Like, it's not irrational to them at all to think that they were gonna be killed. Like, I think at some point on the stand, Erik talks about how one of the times when his dad was abusing him, he got really rough and almost choked him. Like, dude, there's so many details that a lot of them we probably won't even get to touch on that were part of the abuse that would make you think, you know what, maybe this is the time he kills me. Like, and I think Lyle testified that his, later in the years of abuse, his dad had told him that if he ever told someone, he'd kill him. So, I mean, and even if that was hyperbolic, your brain is so in fear, right? You're gonna take that literally.
Yeah, exactly. I also read that Kitty apparently threatened to poison her own family.
I didn't know that.
So I guess she told her kids she hated them. So whenever her husband would molest the oldest son, Erik, he would like throw up like
You mean
repeatedly.
Lyle?
Oh, not the oldest, but
the youngest,
Erik. He's the younger one. Yeah. So he would like throw up, and she would just ignore it and not do anything. And she would apparently check his genitals to like make sure everything was on the up and up and stuff. Like just weird stuff that makes it
Right.
Like the enabling wasn't like I'm just gonna sit back and ignore this and pretend like it's not happening. She
Right.
knew what was happening, and she was a terrible person. So yeah, and it's like, I mean, we probably won't touch on the extensive details of it, but
I did read that Kitty. So Erik said that his mom had told him on repeated occasions that she wished she hadn't had children because her life was basically ruined because of that, and she could no longer pursue her career and dreams and etc. etc. And this is the thing, like Kitty had a lot of, well, yeah, Jose had none. Kitty had a lot of people like, you know, talk about her good character and whatnot, but like there are so many like little things, and this is what makes me think that it's real, what the brothers are saying about their mom. It's the fact that it wasn't anything as egregious as the dad. Well, I mean, enabling abuse of your own children is pretty egregious, but like it was always like, besides that, snarky like comments, but like really hurtful comments, because like it is snarky to say, oh, I wish I never had children, but it is also like deeply hurtful if you're the fucking child listening to that. Like, excuse me, mom, what? You wish I was never born?
Yeah.
And she'd say it angrily too, and apparently like she really did have these outbursts of anger, which she would just be like, oh, fuck you kids, and like, you know, throw pants or whatever the fuck.
Well, I think you're right. It is, in this situation, it's them or us. I think that was their minds. And I think if they hadn't done this, either Erik would have killed himself, or maybe his dad would have snapped and killed him.
Right. It literally, us versus them.
Actively, like, I feel like it was the best case scenario for them. Oh, that sounds so bad.
And it does sound so bad. Here's the thing. It literally wasn't, because they could have fled, but they didn't feel like they could flee.
Right.
That's the problem.
They weren't psychologically capable of seeing
these kids were so abused by their dad that their dad sealed his own fate, right? Because like if they had fled, like he wouldn't have died,
right?
But they didn't feel like they could do that. So the brothers had a cousin. I can't remember her name. This girl, she testified in court during the first I think it was either both or just Erik's trial, and she was like, yeah, I knew Kitty, and I stayed with them when I was like 13. I stayed at their house for like the summer, and I would see that the brothers would be called by their dad to come into this room, like the master bedroom, every day at like 3 p.m. And Kitty would always tell me like not go in there while that's happening, because they're having like father-son time or whatever, which, girl,
oh my god,
to call it that, like,
so creepy.
Kitty, fuck yourself. And like one time she got a little bit too close to that door as she was walking down the hallway, the cousin did, and Kitty just like grabbed her and like took her to the kitchen and just like, you know, sat her there. And it's like, I mean, like, again, I think it's just because this woman was so, like, the father is like literally Satan, but I think he gets too much attention. Like, literally, this couldn't have continued if Kitty had just gone to the police. Because, like, yes, rich and everything, but, like, there is no fucking way, no matter how rich you are, that, like, if this got into, like, the public stream and, like, people were aware of this wouldn't have become a huge fucking scandal and it would have stopped. Like, there's no way.
She could have protected her kids.
There's just no excuse. There was a way to do it. There was a way. And so I just don't think she gets enough attention, because even if she never, like, diddled her kids, like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, so anyway, the trials both take place. The brothers both recount in horrific detail in live TV to national television, which, by the way, this case back in 1996 was kind of the birth of court TV, which now is like huge. It's its own industry. They recount in horrific detail in live national television how their father abused them for years on end, and I mean, yeah, everything. Okay, we won't get into detail, but, like, literally anything you can think of. There was, obviously, the sexual abuse, but also emotional, otherwise physical and also verbal abuse. And they cried a lot on the stand. Like, you could almost see them regressing to, like, their childlike state. Like they were bawling their eyes out, and they sounded like little kids when they were recounting these events, because like I am sure like the trauma just takes you back to that moment, and you're like literally 6 years old again. This is fucked.
I mean, if you watch it, because you can watch it on
yeah
YouTube,
yeah you can watch it.
It's devastating.
Yeah.
And I really don't know how anyone could think that they were faking that. Like, I don't.
I know
You have to like not have any heart or any rational thinking to believe that someone could be that talented, because even like the best psychopath, the best actor couldn't.
Meryl Streep was shaking watching that. Okay.
Right. Like, that's.
There was
crazy.
one jury member on Lyle's trial who was afterwards interviewed after there was a surprise hung jury, and it was like, yeah, hung jury and whatever, but like personally I contributed to the no's, to the not guilty, because I was like, this kid is either a psychopath or the best actor ever, right? Like, oh no, it was, what was it? No, sorry, no, neither of those are good. It was this, either is he telling the truth or he's the best actor ever,
Right.
and I completely agree. So
hung
jury for both trials, both individual trials. And so the public, again, this is the thing. We're talking about this like in this way now, and a lot of people agree with the way we think about this now. But in 1996, people were outraged at the fact that there was a hung jury, because it's like, what, 2 killers on the loose, and like sexual abuse and mental health wasn't hip in 1996, right? I think people were still like coked up from the 80s, and so it wasn't a thing. And there was basically, just in the general American zeitgeist, just a lot less empathy for victims of abuse. Mainly because, well, boys can't be raped. What? That's stupid. And also, like, oh, what? No, their dad would never do that. That would mean he's gay, which I love that, like, that was the biggest, not the fact that he's a pedophile, but like that would make him gay, and gay people don't exist, like some stupid fucking shit. Like, he has a wife, and it's like, dude, he wasn't gay. Like, he was a pedophile, and like the gender of the child almost does not matter when you're a pedophile. Like, I think it really is all just about the age, and like the fact that this was confounding people, and like, oh, but that would mean he's gay, so therefore he didn't do it, is to me just like astounding, right?
Just the amount of ignorance and the ability for people to turn the other cheek on issues that are so serious,
right?
It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, Jose was straight, so I would have believed that if he abused his daughters, but his sons,
it's so crazy.
No way.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the whole like, oh, boys can be abused. I mean, come on, dude. Anyway, so that happens. People are outraged because they think this is all stupid about the abuse. Basically, the general public is kind of not buying it, and they want justice for these rich parents from Beverly Hills. And they retry the cases. This time, they try the brothers together, and not only that, but the judge takes away the defense's ability to include a lot of the sexual abuse like bullet points that they touched on in the original trial that almost got a favorable result, because hung is better than sentenced.
Right.
And the judge, I think because the judge was under a lot of pressure to also get this like resolution, right, and get them guilty, he basically manipulated the system. Judges being kind of omnipotent in a courtroom, was like, I'm not gonna allow a lot of the defense's sexual abuse claims and evidence, whatnot, and also what was it? And also, this will not be televised, which I think actually that might have been a good idea. This one will not be televised because like too much fucking media attention and too much shit.
Right.
But also, what was it? Oh, I will not allow the jury to go for manslaughter charges. They either do death penalty or not guilty, which you're literally rigging the jury at that point.
Yeah, that's
like,
ridiculous.
They're obviously not, like, most likely not gonna wanna, like, if the first juries of the first 2 trials, right, like, didn't go for the death penalty, they would have, if they agreed, if there wasn't a hung jury, they would have most likely gone for manslaughter, which would allow for for them to appeal. No, what was it? Parole, which would allow for parole and also wouldn't be a life sentence. But here, since the judge knew that and he thought like, oh, that won't be enough for the public to be happy, he was like, no, you either set them free, which there's no way the jury was gonna do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't do that even now because like they still killed someone even with all this justification, or you put them to or you put them to death. And so obviously they chose the latter, but then they were like, no, actually, I will allow life in prison. It was either that or it was actually free versus life in prison all along. I don't remember how it was. But the point is that the judge only gave the jury the ability to choose between this like duality of black and white. And of course, they chose black because the brothers still killed someone. And if you're a jury member, you want to feel like you inflicted justice.
Well, there's so many issues with this because if you throw out all the testimony about the sexual abuse, you're removing motive. And so,
I mean, literally,
all they had, all the jury heard was the motive was, I want money now. And of course, if you hear that, you're going to see them a certain way. It was a different jury. They didn't, didn't get the same thing. And it's really unfortunate. And I think today the case would have gone a lot differently. And I don't think that they deserved life in prison because you have to realize, and a lot of people don't see it this way, like you're talking about like black and white viewpoints, just because they killed their parents doesn't mean they are these crazy psychopaths who you're unleashing on the streets. They killed their parents. Those are family members for a very specific reason. They're not going to go like shooting in random places. Like it's not reasonable. What they really needed was mental health support in a fucking institution.
And if at this point you still want to inflict some punishment because they still committed murder no matter what, okay, manslaughter charges. Again, because like, yes, murder, but also this murder took place after years of abuse, which frankly to me is almost fucking worse. You're already like, dude, it's just so fucked. Like, I mean, I guess I won't say it's worse because whatever, but like, I feel like part of you dies, dude. Yeah. Like, what the fuck?
Your entire life, you're trained to believe that you are absolutely worthless and only good for being a pleasure object for your father. That's disgusting. You don't have a life. You don't have an identity. They literally had no chance.
Right. So it's like, they could have tortured their... I'm not gonna get into this. At least it was quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think today they would have gotten manslaughter, which would have allowed for parole after, I don't know, a couple of decades, which I think is where they are at now. They've done like 23, 24 years of prison. And frankly, I think that would have been fine. Again, if everything that happened with them with the abuse is true, which personally I believe. But of course, there's the alternative reality, which we must mention, where they are psychopaths and they were lying, and it was all a defense technique.
If they were psychopaths, wouldn't there have been a lot more psychological premise to that? Wouldn't there have been... I
mean, I certainly think so.
Yeah. But... And I mean, we didn't talk about Daddy, so the family had a pet ferret. And there was a family member who testified about this. It may have been a cousin or something. She said that she always saw the ferret around, and then one day it just wasn't there. So she asked what happened to it, and they said, we think one of the dogs killed it. And one of the sons goes and opens up the fridge one day, and the dog's head is decapitated in the fridge.
The dog or the ferret?
The dog. Because I guess Jose thought the dog killed the ferret, I'm going to kill the dog.
Oh my god.
And
so he was a psychopath.
He was a psychopath. Well, obviously. He was absolutely horrible. And so it's just like, even... in death, he still won. Like, his kids are still in prison.
That is what I meant with the, like, they almost got the better end of the deal, even if murder did take place, because these motherfuckers were fucking horrid. Again, assuming all of this is true, which, if you ask me, it was. Fuck. And again, for me, the thing that really seals the deal as far as thinking this is true is their own testimonies on the stand. Like, these two young men are like bawling their eyes out, recounting in horrific detail what happened to them. And the detail is one so like gross and specific and unique that it's like, I mean, you're either J.K. Rowling or this happened to you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and Lyle testified on stand that he did the same to his
yeah,
brother.
to his brother.
He admitted it because...
Which, like, why would you make yourself look bad unless
Right.
it was actually true?
And it was just, that's, you know...
And he was asked about it, and he had to tell the truth.
Right.
Right.
And they, you know, got... He understood why it had happened, basically. So
Right.
it's like, this was just the patterning.
Erik forgave his brother
Yeah.
for, like, taking him out to the woods, like, a couple of times and basically, like, putting a finger up his butt because like, Lyle was just trying to, I think, process the trauma of what was being done to him. And, like, he was, like, a child. He was, like, less than 10 at this point. They were kids.
Yeah.
And, like, dude, and Erik, like, forgave him for that. And, like, they love each other as brothers still now to this point. I should mention, when they were sentenced to life in prison, they were sentenced to go to, like, different prisons, and they didn't see each other for, like, 22 years.
So crazy.
And it was actually, I checked, it was only in 2018 that they were finally put together in the same prison, and then eventually a couple months later in the same room, and they, like, were finally reunited, and they, like, you know, bawled their eyes out when they finally reunited, because they were really close as brothers, and I'm sure the trauma, you know, made them be even closer as it was taking place when they were children, because like they are all that the other person had, like they were the only person the other person could confide in, because like you couldn't tell this to anyone else.
No.
Yeah, again, like Lyle, I guess, because they were both being abused as children, and I think they both knew about the other person's abuse, but Lyle thought when he left home that like that died with him, and it didn't. Anyway,
I think it just goes to show that, like, the criminal justice system is flawed in so many more ways than we constantly talk about, you know? And it's like, it's not about what they deserve, it's about what, you know, someone else decides for them.
basically.
Because what they deserve is, you know, mental health treatment, not to have
Right,
this happen in the
right.
first place. They aren't a danger to society at large.
Right.
Like, they got rid of the one danger to them.
Basically.
And that sucks.
And they're like basically like gold star inmates, like
Yeah.
right, which you like I totally thought that would be the case, because like again, they're not like dangerous people. They just like killed these people that basically like killed their fucking soul in the first place. Like it was just like an eye for an eye situation, not a I'm a criminal and I like killing people thing.
Well, the other thing we didn't talk about is the prosecution liked to play up, you know, you shot your mom so many more times, you must be a sick psychopath. It's like,
Right,
they probably
right,
shot her
right.
more times because it's almost
Like
worse to
I
be
thought you
standing
had
by.
my back.
Exactly.
You fucking bitch.
Like, at least with their dad, it's pure evil. With
Right,
her, it's
right.
like, you could have helped.
I know, that almost hurts more, dude.
It does.
That's exactly what I was like bringing up things about Katie earlier, because I was like, no one pays attention to her a lot.
Yeah.
But okay, a couple of silver linings for this case. They're good inmates. They get they're also now they're reunited, and they are both in like part of their prison where like it's like nicer, and you can only go there if you're like a good inmate that doesn't cause trouble. So like that's good, and they're like giving like self-help seminars in prison. So like they're making themselves useful and finding purpose. I recently saw a phone interview that Erik did with like 60 Minutes or something, and he was talking about he finds purpose in doing shit in prison and keeping himself occupied and helping others. So that's great.
Yeah.
And also they both got married. Lyle got actually married twice, because the first time he was already in prison, and divorced because apparently the woman found out that he was cheating on her with another from prison. He was apparently cheating on her with another woman, I'm guessing through letters and whatnot.
Yeah.
Which honestly I understand her. Yeah, no, I totally understand. Yeah, that was bad of Lyle to do. So they divorced, and then he remarried, and Erik has been married to this lady for like years now. I don't know, at least 10, 12 years. I didn't read too much into that, but they do have partners, and they visit them in prison whenever they can, and they write letters, and they can like hug and kiss for like a couple of minutes when they're like saying goodbye, I think, at like the table, the visitation room. And I mean, that's great, but like what will be truly great, I think, is full justice for these two, because again, they didn't deserve life in prison.
No, they didn't.
Straight up. May I say something not controversial and not brave? They didn't deserve life in prison.
No,
Like that
they
shouldn't be
didn't.
controversial.
It's not, because how can you say you deserve life in prison for being abused your entire life?
Literally.
And snapping.
And snapping.
Yeah, that's it. You made one decision against some really terrible people who should have been in prison themselves.
And here's the thing. The prosecution never denied the brothers' abuse claims. They were never like, they must be lying, everyone. They were saying, even if that happened, it wasn't that bad. And you just wanted the money. And that tells you a lot. Because they knew their testimonies were going to be so impactful. The prosecution couldn't literally just be like, we think they're lying.
Right.
Because the jury certainly wasn't thinking they were lying.
And the money thing just doesn't make sense to me because they had money. They grew up with money.
Right. Like,
why do they want their money?
Also, literally, why now? Like, right now. And we have to kill them for it.
Right.
And we have to make it look this fucking messy.
Yeah.
Like, if it really was for the money, wouldn't you think it would be way more planned?
Yeah.
Because it's not like, oh, my dad's running out of money tomorrow. We have to kill him right now, this hour.
Right.
Like, that, what?
No.
Guys.
It's just so sad. It's so sad.
Yeah. So... Anyway, this case is getting a lot of attention nowadays. If you guys want to learn more about this case, just look up the Menendez brothers case. I'm not sure as far as... I mean, there's a lot you can do as far as, like, activism and getting the word out. But as far as, like, the actual legal process of having them, like, allowed to request parole or, like, for them to be able to appeal their case again so many years later, I don't know how that actually gets done. But I think getting the word out can only help with that.
Right.
So... educate yourself if you're interested in the case, and fuck them bitches, dude. Like,
fuck them bitches.
People fucking suck.
They do. And I think, also if you want to educate yourself, sexual assault, all that stuff, we need to stop blaming victims. We need to stop stigmatizing
You think
them.
in 2021 that wouldn't happen anymore? And like,
It
yes,
happens.
we are
It happens.
we are bounds and leaves from where we were in 1996, but like, it happens.
Right.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of people realize it's really hard to get a conviction in our current justice system for these types of sex assault cases, because oftentimes it's he said, she said, and who's on the jury? People who aren't informed, people who are biased, people who, like it's incredibly difficult and it's incredibly sad.
Like, even the process itself of selecting a jury, like the fact it's like both parties, right, being the defense and the prosecution, both want to get their hands on that because they both want like their respective end of the table to win.
Right.
And so like jury selection is often fucking messy because like you're trying to play to people's biases and therefore selecting people that you think will either help you or not help you get a conviction depending on if you are on defense or prosecution. And like, so you don't actually like, a jury of your peers. It's not really a jury of your peers. It's like a jury of carefully selected people, half of whom are trying to like fuck you over given their own personal biases, and half of whom will likely believe you and want to help you. Like, it's literally terrible.
Well, this is...
anyway, on that note...
America, welcome. Enjoy your stay. Great times.
On that note, guys, thank you for listening to this very special edition of Scary Talk.
Very special edition. I want you all to know that the Mothman is still my friend.
Yes.
We talk to each other daily.
Yes, I heard. I saw you guys' WhatsApp conversations.
Oh my god, you are such a stalker. Wow.
But yeah, thank you so much for listening. If you guys, Shannon's never coming back. She's literally retaring at this moment.
Right.
She's turning 65. Girl needs to rest.
No, I'm tired.
But Sunny and I will be back very soon. And if you guys, as you guys know, we only have a couple episodes left. If you have any topic ideas that you'd like us to consider now that we're kind of in our end game for us to cover, do let us know by DMing us at Talk Scary on Facebook on Twitter and Instagram, and at Scary Talk on Facebook. And we love reading your comments and suggestions. And we're gonna go move to Canada. Good night, y'all. The Mothman loves you. We love you. And have a good retirement, Shannon.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. And don't eat any dinner tonight before bed. I know that's the thing you do.
I know, dude.
Yeah,
I get so fucking gassy. Anyway, good night, y'all.